Hello, everyone. My name is Ian Rowe.
And I'm Nique,
and welcome to The Invisible Men, where we make the achievements of incredible men invisible no more. Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of The Invisible Men. My name is Ian Rowe, resident fellow of the American Enterprise Institute.
Hello, I'm Nique, member of the Leadership Network at AEI. And today, as always, we have another exceptional example of Black excellence and someone who we're all very eager to hear what he has to tell Darryl. Our guest today is Chris Campbell, and you can remember a few weeks ago we had a world champion wrestler on. Well, we have another one. Chris has an incredible wrestling pedigree and actually an academic and overall administration and leadership background. So Chris was a two-time NC2A champion. He was a three-time World Cup champion. He was a world champion wrestler, winning both a gold medal and a silver medal. And then at the age of, I believe, Chris, 38, you became the oldest wrestler to ever medal at the Olympics. And he achieved a bronze medal at the age of 38. And for those that don't know wrestling, you're pretty much over the hill at 28. And I think Chris had taken maybe 6 or 7 years off in the meantime. So that was one of the great accomplishments in Olympic sports to come back from that. But in addition to that, Mr. Campbell is also a graduate of Cornell Law School and has been a practicing attorney for many years. He was the former executive director of USA Boxing, which is the Olympic governing body for boxing, and was also the vice chair and chairman of the Athletes Advisory Council, which was a part of the U.S. Olympic Committee governing body. So an exceptional experience and sort of the rare example of the athlete that reached the highest levels of achievement in athletics and then sort of reached back or stepped forward and provided a steady hand of leadership around the administration of Olympic level sports and athletics. So welcome, Chris.
Oh, thank you. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, Chris, my gosh, I'm exhausted just listening to all those accomplishments. And, our thing is that we like to demystify Black excellence. And so, because we often meet people when they're so successful, kids, see kind of the finished product. And what we like to do is go back to young Chris when you hadn't yet achieved all these accolades. Was there anything that happened to you in your early days that helped be a turning point for you in terms of how you thought about your own life and that led you down this path?
Well, yeah, maybe. I can remember a couple of things. I can remember, I think I was in a really deep depression, like when I was a child, like in 3rd or 4th grade. And so in 4th grade, I just had totally shut down. And then, I started having some really good teachers, I had a 7th grade teacher that was excellent, really wanted me to emphasize writing and so forth. So
where was that?
Excuse me?
Where was this?
This was in Westfield, New Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had some excellent teachers there. And then for me, from an athletic perspective, for whatever reason, I always thought I was the best. I can remember I thought I was the best runner of anybody, and I would always, run faster than most of the kids on the block. And then this one kid moved in. His name was Kenny Blackwell, I believe it was, who was really fast, and he beat me. And it just, my mind couldn't handle it, so I had to race him 4 or 5 times. He beat me all 5 times, right? And handle it. I couldn't understand it. It didn't equate to me. But with respect to wrestling, when I started wrestling later on, say like in high school, I always had envisioned that I would be the best in the world. And I can remember walking down the street telling this girl I was flirting with, hey, I'm going to be the best wrestler in the world. You just wait and see. And that was just in my head. I don't know why, but, and I think that carried me through because I think in a lot of matches I was in, you can either give up or quit, or you can fight through it. And if your ego is such that you believe you should be the best, then you fight through it a lot of times, I think.
Wow. So, but where do you think that came from? I mean, were there experiences with your parents, your family? Like, where did that edge come from? That part of your ego?
I don't have a clue. I guess my uneducated view of it would be that some people just have the killer instinct and some people don't. And you can try all you want if you don't have a killer instinct to be a killer, but it ain't going to work. And if you got the killer instinct, then you're going to go through walls to get what you want. That's the way I see it.
Were there members of your family, siblings or parents or an aunt or uncle that had a similar bust through walls attitude?
I was raised by my mother and my grandmother. My father wasn't around. And my mother was a devout Jehovah's Witness. So she didn't want me to be involved in sports. So my whole sporting point of view came from me. I was the one who was going to the practice. And for example, my mother wouldn't sign my permission slip to wrestle my junior year in high school because she felt that I should be doing ministry and not competing in athletics. And I can remember I went to the junior college about, 45 minutes away from my house every day to wrestle with that team because I just love wrestling. So for me, and then for whatever reason, my senior year, I asked her again, she signed it. So I got to wrestle and win the state championships. So for me, it was always a love of the sport.
So Chris, just to repeat what you just said, so your junior year, you're in high school, your mother wouldn't sign the permission slip for wrestling. So you then somehow made it 45 minutes, I guess, every day to the local junior college and train with grown men.
Yeah. And I think it probably helped me too. Yeah. Because I was wrestling with state champions.
Yeah. Boy, I tell you, if we could bottle this, it'd be a heck of a product to sell. I mean, that is really, to have that kind of fortitude at such a young age, it's really quite remarkable. And so you finished high school, what led you, how did you make your college choice in terms of where you were going to wrestle and how you thought about the head coach and that whole process?
Well, because I only competed 1 year in high school, I wasn't recruited by the big time colleges. So I was looking at Montclair State, and I think Maryland was also a school I was looking at. I got an offer for a full ride to Maryland, and fortunately I only signed, I think it was a regional agreement. But then the coach, his name is Richie Softman of Montclair State, said to me, Chris, I can't allow you to go to Maryland. You've got too much talent. He's going to waste it. You have to go out and be coached by this guy named Dan Gable. And as a coincidence, Dan Gable had come to my high school. Now, I was, about 1,000 miles away or so. He had flown to my high school to do our athletic program closing ceremony, so to speak, for the year. So
wow. And Chris, let me just do one thing for our viewers who may not know who Dan Gable is. So at this point, Dan Gable had won common theme, right? World champion. He had become an Olympic champion at the 72 Olympics, not giving up 1 point the entire time. Dan was also one match from being undefeated through his high school and college career. He lost his last match in college. Yeah, and he's also probably the most, what's that?
He got robbed.
He's probably, and then I'm sorry, Chris, but just for our reason, he's also probably, without a doubt, one of the greatest sport coaches ever. I think he won 15 championships out of 17, something like that. But please go on, Chris.
Yeah, no. So Dan Gable was like the Michael Jordan of wrestling, if you can put it simply, in every respect. But I didn't know much about wrestling at the time. But for some reason, I believed the guy. I believed Richie Softman. So, and I don't know why to this day you don't usually don't do stuff like that. So I had a car that I had bought because I worked all the time at gas stations and stuff. I sold the car, got a plane ticket to Iowa City right after high school. Got a job at a factory cleaning car parts, and then I went to wrestling practice that they were having in the summertime every day working with Gable. And then I think they offered me books, I think, once I showed up for the school year. Then after my freshman year, I had won the Big Ten championship, and I was the most outstanding rusher in the Big Ten. So then I got a full ride.
Wow. I mean, Chris, your story is so extraordinary because you seem to have developed a self-motivation from a very early age. You found mentors, coaches. Not everyone is so fortunate. So I'm still just curious, like what has made you so, I mean, almost like pull yourselves up by the bootstraps. Were there other coaches or mentors early that stepped in?
Well, I had a great Little League football coach. His name was Bruce Johnson. And he wasn't the type of rah-rah yelling kind of coach. He was this real empathetic, really nice person. I mean, and if you talk to any of the people that he coached, whether they were really good or really bad, they all loved him, right? And so for me, I developed a love of sport from him. Because, I mean, he would have us watching films. He would do all the stuff and he'd talk about how you had to be dedicated and committed every day and so forth. So maybe it was him that really sort of seeded me with what I needed to do to be great, because he certainly had all the aspects of watching films, making sure you're committed, making sure you're training, making sure you exercise or drill, the different positions right. He was dead on all that stuff. But the most important thing, he was just a nice person. And I tell you a story with him. So it was I think I was in sixth or seventh grade or whatever. And I wasn't going to go out for football in the League of Football because, my mother wanted me to be a Jehovah's Witness and so forth and focus on that. So Bruce comes up to me, because he knew I was going to be on his football team and that would sort of change the balance of power. And he said, "Chris, why don't you come out? Aren't you coming out?" And I said, "No, I'm not coming out." And then I said, "Well, you know what, Bruce? If you let me play quarterback, I'll come out." Because I had been running back, and to me that was boring. I really wanted to be a quarterback. So he said, "Yeah, we'll do it." So then I got my mother to sign, and I got to play Little League. So the first day of practice, I'm thinking, "Oh, this white guy's going to lie to me, and he's not going to put me in quarterback." First thing he just said, "Campbell, quarterback," and then I played quarterback for him. And I mean, I just loved playing quarterback. I loved playing for him. It was just a joy. So I think that was my real foundation of sport. But with respect to I can remember when I fell really in love with wrestling. I was in junior high school, I think, and I was watching a high school match. And this high school wrestler did a switch, which is a technique move, not big time fancy technique, but it just looked beautiful to me. And so for me, I once I saw that, I was in love with it, and I had to do it. But that was me for wrestling. With my motivation, I think your question, really the important thing was, I think I was lucky to find what I loved early. Mm-hmm. I think, and I think that's just luck. And having I had a town that basically exposed all of its, black or white, all of its students to, athletics, music, everything. And so I got exposed to that, and I found what I loved. So I just think a lot of it was luck.
Chris, did sport impact also how you thought about academics? Because obviously you don't get into Cornell Law School and pass the bar in multiple states without some real rigor intellectually. Did you always have that, or did sport somehow play a part in giving you that discipline?
I really didn't focus on my education extremely until after I finished wrestling in college, because my grade point average was really poor when I graduated from Iowa. And I'll tell you a story about that if you have the moment.
Please.
So I went to, I think I had won the world championship. So I was definitely understood what it took to be great. And I figured I could just take that model and be great with being an attorney as well. So I went to the University of Iowa's, they had a minority minority recruitment person. I said, hey, look, I want to be an attorney. You need to help me out. You need to get me in. And the guy laughed at me. He said, Chris, look at your grades. Some people are just not meant to be attorneys. Maybe you'll be a wrestling coach or something like that, but basically go away. And so, I'm coming off a fresh of becoming a world champion and understanding what that took. And I said, no, I'm going to be an attorney and you need to help me out. So he wouldn't have it. So anyway, I took the LSATs, and when I took the LSATs, I got a very high score. I was in the top 25% of all the people that scored on the LSATs in the country. I was in the top 5 percentile of the people, of minority people that scored. And we were in a time, obviously then, where this country, this was pre-Reagan, so this country actually wanted to try and help to have a minority students, all students sort of in the program. So now I'm starting to be recruited by a bunch of schools, Georgetown, Cornell, and so forth. And but I went to Iowa. I went to there, and they ushered me into the dean of the law school. And the first thing he said to me is, Chris, how did you cheat on the test? So that was it for me in Iowa, right? Because I had worked my butt off for that exam. So that's my story about that.
To talk to a world champion that way. I mean, I guess it's the thing where, because you were raised there, brought up, you developed there, and they just look at you in a different way. But to me, that is just, anyone that can win a world championship in any athletic endeavor is obviously capable of literally doing anything.
Well, if you love it. Yeah, I think I do think it takes a lot of intelligence to figure things out at that level, at the world championship level.
Mm-hmm. Two people came to mind as you were talking. One was Jim Brown, who I admire so much, and I know a little bit of his story and sort of how he got into football and when he finally found football, what that meant for him. But no father, his mother had a lot of boyfriends, and sometimes he had to sleep in the street because the boyfriend was at the house, and he had that intestinal fortitude. He had that, but at the same time, exceptionally great mentors who almost all were white men who guided him, who developed a level of trust in and got him to be, the person that he was. And then I was just listening recently to a Joe Rogan podcast with the young lady, the African-American woman who's a 2-time Olympic boxing champion and now a world champion in boxing. Clarissa is her first name. I'm blanking on her last name, but literally she's been boxing since the age of 11, won two cycles of Olympic gold medals, and has won, I think, world championships in 3 or 4 weight classes. And again, the same intestinal fortitude, the same, I can accomplish this, because she found something that she loved.
Right.
Really, really remarkable. I mean, Chris, do you have any thoughts about, are we doing enough in America to help kids find the things that they love? Or what could we be doing differently?
Well, first of all, I want to say my mother was great. She wasn't not there. She was there and loved me, and I was well supported from my mother and my grandmother. So I didn't have that problem that Jim Brown had. I had a great family. I think we've shortchanged our educational process so much so we could fight wars, killing brown and black people all over the world. So that, from an educational perspective, there's schools that don't have books. I mean, LA, how could you have schools that don't have books in LA, right? They don't have, counselors. So from an educational perspective, I think we're really failing as a country. And there's really no excuse for that.
Yeah.
And then, go ahead, Ian.
No, go ahead.
So understood. Athletically, though, America loves sports, right? I mean, we are, you've been around the globe, relative to America, how other countries embrace. I know Iran loves wrestling and Russia has their favorite sports, but it would seem to me that, well, the question still is to you in the position that you've been in. Does America do enough to help young boys and girls find that confidence and that passion, sometimes through athletics, or are there, Are there other things that we should be doing?
Well, from a sports perspective, I mean, we have sort of an Olympic committee, Olympic movement that's sort of in a state of flux, is not too organized. And so when we do well in the Olympics, it's not because we have planned it right, say like Russia. We do well in the Olympics by chance, or maybe by mere volume of the sports programs we have. We're relying on our Division I colleges to train our Olympic athletes. And if you look at how the Division I colleges are starting to drop most of the Olympic sports, then that's not going to be there for a while. And so we have to do a lot more that way. But again, as I pointed out, like in high school, I think high schools should have strong music programs, strong, news, learning about how to write news programs, newspapers and stuff like that. I think we need to have strong programs there because I think that's really important. But I don't think we do. I mean, and there should be strong, good trade schools and all that stuff. So there's a lot that we could be doing that we're not doing. And I think we're not doing it because we're not focused on people. We're focused on money and war.
Wow. You said something earlier. I have to go back to it. You said when you were growing up, you had that interaction with the coach. And you're like, it's a white person. You didn't trust white people. I'm
Right.
curious, how has that evolved over time?
Well, I mean, I think, dealing with Bruce changed that. And my best friend in high school was Charlie Schroep, who's a white guy. So I think that really changed it. But, I'm always leery if I go into a new situation about how somebody's going to view me, whether they're prejudiced or not. But I do think I give people the benefit of the doubt, and I think it's important to give people the benefit of the doubt. I think it's important to love your neighbor, basically. I think that's like the fundamental principle of having a happy life. Because if you don't, then you're going to be miserable.
And in this current moment where it seems that there's a lot of division by race, how do you think about giving people? How do we create a situation in which more people do give others the benefit of the doubt? Do you think?
I think you got to educate people and you got to talk. I mean, if you look at a situation like it over in Israel and the Palestinians in the Middle East, I mean, I don't know, maybe things just get so toxic that you can never solve the problem. They're in just like a death spiral. They're just going to kill each other until there's nobody left. But you would hope that the more people that feel like they need to love their neighbor and they need to treat other people as they want to be treated, the more people we have doing that, the better off we're all going to be, and the happier we're going to be.
Very good. So we have a segment in the podcast that we call the speed round, and we present to you a couple of individuals or a couple of philosophies or ideas and ask you to pick one and tell us why. So we'll start with our classic Martin or Malcolm.
I would say Martin, because of his stance on nonviolence and loving, and also because I think he understood at a very very early age that it was all about labor. That the bigotry and the suppression of people was dealing with labor as opposed to the capitalists who owned everything. So he understood those two things, and so that's why I would say Martin.
Civil rights or economic development?
I don't see how you have one without the other. Well, civil rights is the foundation of economic development, so I'll say civil rights.
You said it's the foundation of what?
Civil rights would be the foundation of economic development. You can't have economic development if you don't have rights. Like if you're in an apartheid state, I've had many experiences where, I couldn't get jobs. It wasn't because I wasn't the best candidate. It was because of prejudice. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, and our last question kind of feeds into this and sort of the career decisions you've made. Business or law?
I'd say a lawyer. in my role, yeah, I'd say a lawyer.
What about law? Obviously attracted you, and what is it that keeps you obviously motivated? You're still practicing law, doing things. What about that? What makes you pick that?
Well, I think from a legal perspective, you start to understand what's happening, and so you can sort of warn people about what's going to happen to them, about what is happening, and so that would be the way why I would say law. From my perspective, I can tell you how, for example, if you've got a business that's creating problems all over the world, that ultimately is going to create problems for you. Those kinds of things, if that makes sense.
Okay. Thank you.
Got it. Well, Chris, as you know, Nique and I 30 years ago put together this idea for the Invisible Men, on this idea that we felt invisible in the face of a dominant narrative of Black men essentially being an endangered species. And we were concerned that there were probably young men from all over the country who were only seeing one view of Black possibility. And we created this character, Daryl, a 16-year-old who lives in forgotten USA. And so fast forward to today, where again, there's a dominant narrative that suggests that you're much more likely to get shot while walking, shot while driving, shot while doing anything. And it may skew your sense of possibility. So we like to close each session by asking each guest, what would you say to the Daryls of contemporary America? The 16-year-old, Black, white, or of any race, but what would you say is advice you'd want to give to him to find his way through the world?
Well, I think the first thing you need to do is find out what you love. And like I said, some of that is a matter of luck. But then you have to take personal responsibility for your success and understand that you can be great. Every one of us has something that's great in us. And with a 16-year-old kid who says it is in an inner city, which is something different from what I had to deal with, because I had a great college, great high school, great teachers. They really need to, one, believe in themselves. It's so important to believe in yourself as a foundation. And two, then you've got to really take on your education to sort of make yourself better, which would be, if your schools don't have books, figure out where a library is, go to the library, start writing down daily what you want to accomplish academically. You really take control of, have a really long-term goals for academic success, and then write down short-term daily goals of what you need to do. So that's taking control of your life and not being a victim of circumstances. It's really hard, I think, for those students in those situations, and I can understand that. But those are the two things that I think the three things I think I would say to those children. The most of all, believe in yourself, because I understand now that we're only limited by our imagination, our thought, and so if we don't have any limits, if we really believe in ourselves, we can accomplish a lot of great things. Now, you may not end up like I thought I was going to be an Olympic gold medal. You may not end up an Olympic gold medalist, but if you fall a little bit short, you can live with it. But
Silver medal's pretty cool. Silver medal's pretty cool too.
Yeah.
You hear the gold medal's like, yeah, silver. I don't know about that.
Actually, there's a whole analysis that actually people who win silver are more depressed than those that win bronze. Because if you win silver, you could have won gold. Where bronze, you got to actually win the bronze medal. It's like I know I've got about this close to a gold medal, but at least I can read and be close to people like Chris.
There you go.
If you win a silver medal, you lost. If you get a silver medal, you lost your last match. If you get a bronze medal, you won your last match.
Yes, thank you.
Right?
Right. Wow. Well, Chris, thank you very much. I think those are powerful words. We're only limited by what you can imagine for yourself. So thank you for that. That's very, very inspiring and moving. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for being part of this latest episode of The Invisible Men. If our viewers want to see any other episode, you can go to www.invisible.men. And we're all about demystifying Black excellence. So Chris, thank you for sharing your story.
Okay, thank you guys for having me.
Thank you, Chris.
Take care.
Thank you for watching another episode of The Invisible Men. You can find other episodes at the AEI podcast channel on YouTube or the website invisible.men or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.